When you work in Revit, elements in your project are measured in either imperial or metric units. You can change the type of units used and also adjust snap settings based on those units. Typically, when you start a new project, you choose the type of units by selecting either an imperial or a metric template. When using imperial units, the default unit for measuring length is the foot. When using metric units, the default unit is millimeters. But you can change these settings. To change the type of units used in a project, on the Manage ribbon, in the Settings panel, click Project Units. Revit displays the Project Units dialog. In this dialog, there is a discipline drop-down at the top and the associated units are listed in the pane below. Expand the discipline drop-down to see the available disciplines in Revit: Common, Structural, HVAC, Electrical, Piping, and Energy. Once you select a discipline, the associated units are displayed in the list in the pane below. The units are listed on the left of the pane, and the format for each one appears to the right. With the discipline set to Common, you can change the type of units used for measuring length, area, volume, angle, slope, currency, and mass density. For example, when you click the button in the Format field next to Length, Revit displays a Format dialog. You can then expand the Units drop-down and choose a different unit of measure to use for length. The available options are decimal feet, feet and fractional inches, decimal inches, fractional inches, meters, decimeters, centimeters, millimeters, and meters and centimeters. After you have specified the type of units, you can control the place value where numerals are rounded off. Expand the rounding drop-down, and you can see that there are several options. Depending on which units were selected, you may see a custom option. When you select Custom, the adjacent rounding increment field becomes available, and you can enter a custom rounding increment. Additionally, depending on the type of units you have chosen, you may be able to select the unit symbol and control other options, such as the suppression of trailing zeros or spaces. Once you have finished specifying the format, click OK to return to the Project Units dialog. You can then change the units used for other types of measurement as well. You can also adjust the decimal symbol and digit grouping. When you have finished adjusting the project units, click OK to close the Project Units dialog. The Units settings work in conjunction with the Snap settings. When you place an element or component in a project view, Revit snaps to dimension increments, angle increments, and specific points on existing elements. You have the ability to control these snap settings. To adjust the snaps, on the Manage ribbon, click Snaps in the Settings panel. Revit displays the Snaps dialog. At the top, you can select Snaps Off to simply turn off all snap settings. When you select this option, all settings in this dialog become unavailable. Leave this option deselected. In the Dimension Snaps area, there is a message stating that snaps adjust as views are zoomed, and that the largest value that represents less than 2 millimeters on screen is used. Then there are two snap increment settings that can be enabled or disabled: length dimension snap increments and angular dimension snap increments. When an option is selected, you can specify values in the field beneath. For example, In the length field, you can set the increments to which Revit will snap when creating elements or placing components along a specified length. You can enter multiple values, but you must separate them with semicolons. Revit will snap to the closest available increment based on a view's current level of magnification. To understand the specifics about which value will actually be used, recall the message above. The largest snap increment that represents less than 2 millimeters on your screen will be the value used. Similarly, in the angular field, you can control the angular increments. In the Object Snaps area, you can control which object snaps are active. Typically, you will work with all of these snaps turned on. However, you can turn certain snaps off and on as you please. You can also use Check All or Check None to control which object snaps are active. In the Temporary Overrides area, there is another message stating that while using an interactive tool, keyboard shortcuts, shown in parentheses, can be used to specify a snap type for a single pick. This means you can use a specific object snap by using the keyboard shortcut shown in parentheses next to the object snap in this dialog. When you do, the snap will essentially be isolated, so that it is the only snap that can be used at that time. Also in this area, additional keyboard shortcuts are shown. For example, use SZ for the close snap, SS to turn override off, Tab to cycle through snaps, and Shift to force horizontal and vertical. For additional information on snaps, select Help to open Autodesk Revit Help. Click OK to accept all changes made and close the Snaps dialog, or click Cancel to discard any changes and close the dialog.